Luigi's Mansion 4. It has to be coming soon. It has to be coming soon. I have made plenty of videos on Luigi's Mansion, what I think the future of the series could possibly be. I've talked a little bit about the actual sales history of the series. I talked about Luigi's Mansion 2 HD when I reviewed that game last year. I've talked so much about Luigi's Mansion, and I adore this franchise. And today, I got nothing else for you except for we need to talk about the emotions. Like, if you are a part of this Luigi's Mansion community, I'm here. I am here for you. I am voicing your opinions. Let's get closer to this game's release together, because if you watch this entire video, which I hope you do, and like and subscribe and all that, go do that right now. But if you watch this whole video, you will be that much closer to the next Luigi's Mansion. So let's just talk about it. Let's talk about it today. Starting off with just like, and here we're going to be casual. We're going to be real casual today, but just starting off with the idea of what is a Luigi's Mansion 4 even going to look like. Because we see Luigi's Mansion 3, right? They bring it back from the dead after Luigi's Mansion 2 came out in the 3DS, and that sold pretty well, but it wasn't what people were expecting or wanting from the series after Luigi's Mansion on the GameCube. The GameCube game was a phenomenal new IP, a brand new idea with a good look at what Luigi's character actually is, the scaredy cat that he is, but he's able to push through for his family, for his brothers. There's good morals, good values, good everything in this game. He finally saves Mario, and then we get about a decade later on the 3DS, we get Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, or 2 for most people outside of America. Then, of course, we got 2 HD on the Switch 2 later on. We've got Luigi's Mansion 3 in 2019, and they've evolved the series differently ever since. Next Level Games has Luigi's Mansion now, and they know exactly what they're doing. They've made this game look gorgeous. They made the different gameplay mechanics even better than they've ever been before. So I have the utmost trust in Next Level Games to do exactly what they did with 3. It's just to build upon the series, give us some new stuff, and make it even better. But at this point, I just wonder, what could they do different without ruining the series' identity? You know what I mean? Like, at what point do you just say, we've explored too many mansions? Like, I feel like if tomorrow, if somehow tomorrow they reveal Luigi's Mansion 4 for us, and then they tell us, okay, cool, here we go, it's coming out in 2 weeks, Luigi's Mansion 4 is, and it just looks like a better graphical update compared to 3, and it's like the same from that with a couple new different things. I just wonder if people are going to be excited about that in the same way that I know I would be, at least. But like, is that enough? Because we look at the Mario series, right? In the Zelda series, Zelda reached a point where it needed a reboot. It reached the point where we needed a brand new style of game. We needed Breath of the Wild to continue the idea of Zelda even being a top Nintendo franchise. That is how dire things were after Skyward Sword. It didn't sell well at all on a console with over 100 million people, so they decided to reboot the stinking franchise in Breath of the Wild. They made it to where the gameplay was completely and totally different, and they've been almost milking it for the last 10 years because it sold so well, and people love that franchise and what it brings now with the Wild era. People love this iteration of Zelda, but it's become very divisive, and that's because we've gotten so much of it. And of course, if we were to get 2 or 3 more games like Luigi's Mansion 3, I think people would become divisive about this series as well, because it would just be more of the same. It wouldn't be any innovation. You look at the 3D Mario series, right? You get yourself some Super Mario 64, people love it. Into Sunshine, it was very divisive. Then you get on the Wii, Super Mario Galaxy, Galaxy 2, 2 phenomenal games, but were very linear. That was a very linear time for Nintendo's entire department of game developers. Just everyone was pushing that linear facet of stuff and just 2D games and all that. And even within the big 3D scope of Galaxy, you had yourself a bunch of linear puzzles and a bunch of linear stretches. And that is good to some extent, because without some limitation, you can't be fully creative in what you want to do. You have to have some limits to be creative, which is almost a paradox there, but it makes sense. So when you look at Luigi's Mansion 3, right, even with the Mario franchise, it got itself a little bit of a reboot. So then we got to 3D World, right, and that was so linear, and people were just like, oh my gosh, you're going from space to, it's not even in space anymore, from Galaxy. People wanted Galaxy 3 so badly that when they got to 3D World, it was like, what are we doing here? Every single time we go to a different level, it's a different thing, and it's in its own box, and there's like a weird map on the top of this world. It's not even a hub world. It was just such a divisive thing. Then they moved over to Odyssey. Odyssey was well received by so many people, but of course people complained about the amount of moons there were, all of them. And you know, it just, complaints lead to change, and change leads to innovation, and innovation leads to a big cycle of people loving your games, loving your franchises, and then moving on to the next game. with Luigi's Mansion 3. If Luigi's Mansion 2 had not been so lackluster, had not had such a linear mission structure, had all these problems, 3 would not have been as grand and incredible as it was. It would not have fixed all of those things. It wouldn't have brought itself back to the world of 1 and making it that type of one big hotel rather than just a bunch of mini mansions. It did so much right only because of the failure of 2. And so part of me is afraid because Next Level Games has an interesting track history, right? Like they made the Strikers games, and then of course they made Luigi's Mansion, and then I just don't know if after Nintendo bought Next Level Games, if it's going to be the exact same. Something about there being external studios working on these franchises, like for example with Retro Studios working on Metroid. Metroid Prime is such an incredible franchise. Those games are so good and are so different because they're not made from the Japan developers. They're made from a studio in Texas here in the United States. I think being different is good for Nintendo sometimes. And so because they were bought by Nintendo, I worry a little bit. Now I know that's kind of unfounded worry because a lot of these studios that are in other locations are heavily worked over and monitored by the Nintendo higher ups to the point where I think Retro really got toxic and they had to really fire a bunch of people and a bunch of people got left go. It was just a big issue there at Retro. But here we are now. Luigi's Mansion 3 came out in 2019. And let's talk about that for a second. 2019 is when Luigi's Mansion 3 came out. We are almost in 2026. 2026! It's been almost 7 years since Luigi's Mansion 3 release. Now, I understand, right? Development times are getting longer. They're getting longer by the year. Every single time you get a new console, it feels as though those games are even further away from being made. I remember back when people were talking about Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, like the idea of an asset reusing sequel, a timely sequel, they were able to make Majora's Mask and release it within like 2 to 3 years of Ocarina of Time's release. Can you imagine if Breath of the Wild had come out in 2017 and in 2019 or 2020 they had released Tears of the Kingdom? Like, it's just unfathomable. It took that long for them to make Age of Calamity, a spin-off game that wasn't even received super well by most people. But I think we have to be realistic now. I just grew up around all of these YouTubers and Nintendo tubers saying like, oh, it's been this amount of years, it has to be coming soon. I just don't think that's the case. I think that we have reached a point to where thinking it's been this amount of years and this is how it was in the past is no longer relevant. We're looking at timelines and things that no longer exist in the modern era. Looking at the N64 to the Nintendo Switch 2 now, it's 2 completely different worlds of development, of technology, of specs, of the amount of time and effort it takes, and just with the way that Nintendo treats their employees, right? They're so kind to them. They give them as much time as they need. They don't give them super tight deadlines outside of what is reasonable for a company to impose on their employees. But I think back to Animal Crossing New Horizons, right? Back in COVID, they decided to let that team like just delay the game as long as they needed to make it the product they wanted to make it. And even at launch, people, Animal Crossing fans specifically, were saying that it didn't even have enough content, that it had lackluster content compared to New Leaf. And now here we are, finally, like 6 years later, about to get New Horizons Switch 2 edition, and we're just now getting some updates that finalizes this as the ultimate Animal Crossing in terms of content. It's upsetting and it's frustrating and it's just hard, right? Because if you look at it into the future with some games like that, it's like, how can you continue to top yourself? You are just fighting yourself at that point. Luigi's Mansion 3 is going to have to top itself. That's what it's fighting against. It's not fighting against any other genre. Nintendo fights against themselves. That's all they've ever done because they know if they fight, they're going to lose. So they only ever fight in their own corner by themselves. They make what they want to make. They do what they want to do. And it ends up being successful because they're so fun and they know exactly what they're doing. And the developers think about us and care about us and love making games for us. And I look at Luigi's Mansion. I look at Luigi's Mansion 4, a potential game in that new series. And I just wonder, how much time have they actually been working on this game? And how much time will it take for us to see a new game? Will it live up to the expectations that us fans have? And is it inherently a bad thing for it to have taken this long? I just don't think the answer is as black and white as some people would make it out to be. I don't think that saying 7 years is inherently going to make a game come out, right? If we say, oh, it's been 7 years, so now it means it has to come out next year, it's not true. It's just not true. I mean, we waited so long for a new Kirby Air Riders game, right? That sequel that most people didn't think was ever going to come, and here it is. It came again, right? Because they're not making that a focus. They're not making Kirby Air Riders a big part of their business. That's not what they're doing. It was just a passion project from Sakurai to the fans. Luigi's Mansion has a chance to be a serious pillar, a game series that they continue to use and use and use for years to come. But they're not treating it like that, are they? It sold like one, but they're not treating it like that because we would have gotten a game by now. And I understand if you only want to have one Luigi's Mansion per console, right? But if you look at it, there's a chance that we don't get one. There's a chance we just don't get one at all. And that is a horrific thought, in my opinion, because wow, what a missed opportunity that they could be having here. There's so much to grow on in Luigi's Mansion 3 as well. The mechanics that they used, that they implemented, there's a lot that could be grown into the poltergeist. We could even add something different. What if he starts dual wielding these vacuums? What if he uses other machines other than the poltergeist? What if Egad gets a girlfriend? I don't know. Like what if something completely and totally changes? Egad could be making everything totally different. He could be the villain. What if he's the villain? What if he uses the technology against the Luigi and all the people, and then the ghosts are on Luigi's side? What if we actually work against Egad? There's so much they could do. I'm just trying to think creatively. What else could they do outside of just another 3? Because I think that's what a lot of people want, right? They look at 3 and they think, wow, just do that again. But if you put Luigi in another hotel and he just does the same things again, that's boring. That's very boring. What do you need then? You need a different layout. You need a different place. But where? The hotel idea was ingenious because you go from floor to floor to floor, and it didn't have to make coherent sense. It didn't have to at all. You could go to a beach area, and then you could go to this big garden area, and then you could go to a city and like this paranormal place. And it's like, it makes so much sense for that because hotels don't have to be the same. If you're in a mansion, it kind of has to be the same, right? Like, there are different floors, of course, in a hotel, and then there are different areas in a mansion to where, like, okay, this is the gaming room, this is the theater room, this is, you know, all the hotel rooms that they might have in these big mansions. And I think to myself, that doesn't sound as enticing as a hotel. Going back to a mansion doesn't sound that fun. I don't think it does. I don't think they could bring back a mansion in the style of 3 and it work very well unless it was another type of hotel. So what are they going to do? They could go underground. They could do the several different mansions again, but that would just be bad, right? Because people didn't like that. People didn't like the mission structure. So what if they bring back multiple mansions again to where it's like, okay, each mansion has its own theme, but then they don't take the mission structure. They don't use it at all. So then it's like the 3 gameplay with multiple mansions from 2 with the 1 feeling, right? But then you have your portrait ghosts again because those boss ghosts are coming back. I don't know. There's just a lot to think about, a lot to worry about, a lot to ponder on. Luigi's Mansion 4 could be phenomenal. And I think the number one thing I'm most looking forward to is how the game looks. And that's honestly a high bar to clear from 3 because Luigi's Mansion 3 is the best looking Nintendo Switch game outside of probably Metroid Prime 4 now. But outside of Prime 4 and Prime Remastered, Luigi's Mansion 3 is it. That game is gorgeous. It is drop dead gorgeous. And I cannot wait to see what they do with the Switch 2 hardware. I can't wait to see what most of these developers are doing with the Switch 2 hardware, because if you think about it, most of the games that we've gotten this year, Kirby Air Riders was developed for the Switch 1, Hyrule Warriors developed for the Switch 1, all of these other games, Donkey Kong, Mario Kart, those were developed with the Switch 1 in mind. We've yet to see a game built from the ground up for the Switch 2. I think Luigi's Mansion 4 could be the first one. Then you get into the idea of like, okay, Mario has not gotten a new game yet. We've not gotten a 3D Mario game yet, and we need that. We need that pretty soon. It's been just as long. It's been longer since we've gotten Mario Odyssey back in 2017. And no, I don't count Bowser's Fury because it wasn't its own standalone release. I don't think that should be hard to tell that if you're giving us a port with an add-on versus a brand new 3D title, those are completely different things. But still, I look at the idea of a Luigi's Mansion 4 and a new 3D Mario in the same year. I don't know if they'd want to do that. Would they want to do that? So does that mean we're even further away from the idea of Luigi's Mansion 4? There's so much, right? Because if you think about the portrait ghost as well, they brought it back in 3, but they didn't fully bring it back, right? It wasn't about the portraits, and it wasn't about this one particular mansion with random lore. It was like, okay, you go to the hotel area, and then you go to the shop area, and then there's a cup. And then you go to the floor with all of the filmmaking stuff, and there's the director ghost. And then you go to the one with the basement, and there's the janitor. That was such a cool idea. So maybe they do like a supermarket, right? Or something like that, to where there's like a mall. Oh my gosh, a mall. And the idea of malls being abandoned is actually quite frequent now. If you think about malls today, they're not at all what they were. Like, they're being taken away because of online shopping. How many times have people gone to Black Friday in the past few years and thought, wow, this looks like just a regular busy day, not like the Black Fridays of old. Malls being abandoned, that's a great theme. You could go to all sorts of different places. They have weird areas in malls, like a huge abandoned mall. that would be phenomenal. Like for Animal Crossing fans, I think most of them thought it would be realistic to think, okay, we're gonna get a new game within the first year or two of the Switch 2's life, because Animal Crossing was a huge phenomenon on the Switch. They want to keep it going, they want to keep the Animal Crossing hype up. That made perfect sense. Then they got the Switch 2 version of Animal Crossing New Horizons, and now we're all saying, dang, if we're getting a new Animal Crossing game, it's not going to be for a long time now. Some people are saying that doesn't mean that, but I think it does. If we look at Luigi's Mansion 3, it didn't get an update. It didn't get any sort of free graphical update. It didn't get any sort of Switch 2 edition. So it technically is a candidate for those still, but it's also a candidate for a brand new game because it's been just as long and it sold just as well as some of these other big first-party titles. It feels inevitable to the fans that a game should be coming. But what if it's not? What if it's just not? And I know I said that earlier, but there's a chance it's just not even in development. There's a chance that Nintendo is not thinking about this in the same way we are. And that is terrifying. That is so scary to me because Luigi's Mansion 4, I want it so bad. And I thought about like becoming a Luigi's Mansion YouTuber for a little bit there after I made my Luigi's Mansion video. The video didn't do super well, and so I was like, oh, maybe there isn't a big audience for this, and maybe that's why there aren't any Luigi's Mansion YouTubers to begin with. But I just think that this has to serve as the video of people saying, wow, where's the game? I'm so excited for it, and yet, where is it? I know I'm blabbering at this point, but what if we also had like a Luigi's Mansion co-op idea instead of Luigi, right? They build on the idea of co-op. Instead of Mario getting kidnapped once again by King Boo, instead of it just being the exact same formula, what if this time Mario comes along? Now, I don't know if that's what they want to do because he would kind of be the star of the show then. It would be weird to see him as like a side character. So maybe Luigi goes on vacation by himself, right? And then he goes and meets a bunch of new people and there are a bunch of new designs. I don't know. It could be that we have Luigi and then we have Mario and then they both have their own little backpack things that they have, the poltergeist. Maybe Peach comes with them. Maybe Wario comes this time. We get a bunch of people going together to this one place. Maybe they do something like Hyrule Warriors where it's like, okay, you play as Luigi and then you switch over to a Mario and then you go back and forth similar to the Luigi style of gameplay where you pressed a button and then it was Luigi. It could be something like that. Maybe they want to develop that idea. And Luigi as a concept, right? Like, is he ever coming back? Because I think it would have been a great idea to put him in Mario Kart World, right? If we had Luigi as some sort of skin of him, it could have been a different costume. That would have been really cool, but they didn't. And they could have put in EGAD and they didn't. So I think that if you want to look at Luigi's Mansion, it's not in the franchises that we would think it would be in, right? If you have a Donkey Kong and then you have a Funky Kong and then you have all these different characters into the Mario Kart series from 8 Deluxe and now into here now with Mario and Pauline and then Donkey Kong with Mario Kart World, I just don't know if Luigi's Mansion is seen as a big franchise at that point. Because even in Smash Bros, right? Like Smash came out in 2018, but they definitely could have added DLC. They could have done Echo Fighter Pass, something like that, to add in Octolings, and then Luigi. They could have had some sort of EGAD character. Luigi's Mansion just isn't in any other Nintendo stuff yet, and that's so interesting. I know I'm rambling. I know I am at this point. It's not a lot of stuff I have to say really outside of this, but I just am so excited, and I'm also dreadful about it because there's a chance we just don't get it. There's a chance that development times are taking longer than ever, and after they finish Battle League, that they just didn't even start on this, that they started on a totally new IP or something. I just don't know, because the acquisition of Next Level Games by Nintendo made me think, oh, they're going all in on Luigi's Mansion. We've not seen anything since, and maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe we're going to get it very soon. But at the same time, maybe they're working on something different. Maybe Nintendo saw what they offered with Luigi's Mansion 3 and said, no, we're not going to make you just do that. We're going to make you do something else. Something similar to Monolith Soft, right? They make some outstanding games. Xenoblade Chronicles, that whole franchise is amazing. It's a technical marvel. And they also work on a lot of the other games. They work on Animal Crossing New Horizons. They work on Tears of the Kingdom. They work on all these different stuff. Like, they help Nintendo develop their biggest and best games because they have such talented developers. So maybe Next Level Games is becoming somewhat of a support studio along with just making new games every now and then. We'll just have to wait and see, I guess. So thank you for making it to the end of the video. I hope that you did enjoy it. If you did enjoy it, press that like button, press that subscribe button, and click that notification bell if you have not already. It would really mean a lot to me if you did that. It really helps the channel grow. Make sure you join the channel as a member if you want to help support me individually as a content creator and a human being, and if you would also like to have early access to all of my videos. Make sure you click on the left side of your screen to see my last video talking about Luigi's Mansion, where that fan base even was. I found a lot of you, but not a ton. And then click on the right side of the screen to see my video talking about Mario Kart World's update and what the developers were thinking behind that. Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. You make sure you have yourself a phenomenal day. This has been Ray's Nintendo Talk. I have been Ray, and I will see you all in the next video.